Top 10 Richest African Countries. The lovely mainland of Africa is honored with a wealth of normal assets, unrefined components, valuable metals, and rich soil. My posts about Africa, the most moving statements about Africa, and the best African dusks are among the most perused pieces on this site. We should check out the monetary circumstance of this mainland, remembering a rundown of the most extravagant nations in Africa. Number 10. Ghana, Gross Domestic Product, $73.89 billion. Gathering together this rundown of the main 10 most extravagant African nations is Ghana, with a gross domestic product barely short of $74 billion throughout the past year. Ghana, tracked down in West Africa, has an economy that is both assorted and wealthy in assets. The nation was the principal in sub-Saharan Africa to defy liberated from the frontier norm, as well as the first to accomplish the objective of dividing outrageous destitution. The country has drawn in unfamiliar speculation because of its general positive business climate and experienced monetary development of simply more than 6% over the most recent 2 years. Administrations add to around half of the Ghanaian gross domestic product and utilize practically 30% of the workforce. The industry is the following greatest supporter of gross domestic product at just shy of 25%, trailed by farming. Ghana has a wealth of regular assets, assisting with feeling a period of prosperity. Gold is the country's fundamental product. This is trailed by oil, and together they make up half of the country's unfamiliar trade. Other significant commodities incorporate cocoa beans, wood, and gold. Number 9. Tanzania, Gross Domestic Product, $77.51 billion. With a gross domestic product of more than $75 billion, Tanzania simply makes this rundown of the most well-off nations on the African mainland, coming at number 9. Known as the home of a portion of the mainland's most renowned public parks and Kilimanjaro, the nation contains a lower center blended pay economy. The country's economy is generally founded on farming, contributing practically 25% to the gross domestic product, and utilizing half of the labor force. The fundamental products incorporate gold, espresso, cashew nuts, and cotton. Tanzania has accomplished a somewhat high financial development as of late, with a 5.6% development rate. However, this is by all accounts dialing back. The medium-term financial viewpoint is positive, upheld by enormous foundation spending, with genuine gross domestic product projected to develop by 5.8% in 2022, because of the return of exchange halls and further developed the travel industry area execution. Number 8. Ethiopia, Gross Domestic Product, $105.32 billion. Found in the Horn of Africa, the landlocked nation of Ethiopia, split by the incomparable Break Valley, is the 8th most extravagant country in Africa. With archaeological finds going back more than 3 million years, this old land is popular for being where the espresso bean originally started. The country is the most elevated espresso and honey maker in Africa, making up a huge piece of the country's unfamiliar trade. Different products incorporate vegetables, slick seeds, and cut blossoms. The gross domestic product of more than $100 billion involves farming, development, fabricating, the travel industry, food handling, assets, and energy. Farming is the locale's most encouraging asset, making up more than 40% of the gross domestic product, 60% of commodities, and over 80% of complete work. In Ethiopia's monetary development has found the middle value of 9.9% year-on-year for quite some time, beginning around 2008. This steady yearly development, something that not many African have made do, has started to draw in unfamiliar speculation. Number 7. Kenya, Gross Domestic Product, $114.68 billion. Kenya, a country in East Africa notable for its huge scenes and untamed life, is next on Africa's most extravagant nation list, having a gross domestic product of more than $100 billion. This country, with its steady, everyday environments, a laid-out espresso and tea area, and quickly developing rural area, is the richest in the Southeast and Focal Africa. By and large, its shoreline has been home to various key ports for Asian and Middle Eastern dealers for quite a long time, turning into an exchange center for the locale. The Kenyan country has arisen as perhaps the quickest developing economy in sub-Saharan Africa, developing gross domestic product by 5.7% in 2019. This is because of positive financial backer certainty, a stable political environment, an administration area, a decent macroeconomic climate, and a reasonable business plan. Number 6. Angola, gross domestic product, $124.86 billion. The nation of Angola has one of the greatest stores of unrefined components in Africa. It very well may be higher up on this rundown of Africa's most extravagant countries. Notwithstanding, because of asset blunders and inner debasement, the economy of the nation has been adversely impacted. With a gross domestic product of more than $124 billion, it comes in at number 6 on this rundown. Angola's economy is based on oil, with huge stores of flammable gas and oil, making up more than 33% of its gross domestic product. The creation and product of raw petroleum contribute fundamentally to unfamiliar trade. Number 5. Morocco, gross domestic product, $133.06 billion. With a gross domestic product of more than $130 billion, Morocco comes in at number 5 on this rundown of most extravagant nations in Africa. The economy of this country in North Africa is flexible and stable, encountering development in various businesses over the past 10 years. It is the second most extravagant non-oil creating African country. The country's economy is driven by mining and assembling. 30% of Morocco's gross domestic product comes from industry, 15% from farming, and 55% from the administration. This is enhanced by a developing travel industry area with local people being inviting sightseers and the public authority putting major areas of strength for on-drawing in guests to the country that is notable for its attractions. Number 4. Algeria, gross domestic product, $193.60 billion. The biggest country on the landmass viewed as in the north, Algeria comes in at 4th put on this rundown of most affluent nations in Africa. Flaunting a critical economy and accessible foundation and a gross domestic product of more than $190 billion, the province accomplished a striking accomplishment of diminishing neediness by 20% in the most recent 20 years. Raw petroleum saves are bountiful in this creating Saharan nation and the economy is vigorously dependent on it. To such an extent that hydrocarbons, oil and flammable gas make up practically 70% of the pay of the country. A new disclosure of more unrefined petroleum saves has supported this quickly developing modern country. Number 3. South Africa, gross domestic product, $426.16 billion. This southernmost country in Africa is one more critical player on the landmass, as the third most extravagant African country. With a profoundly evolved economy, high-level foundation, and a gross domestic product of more than $400 billion, the nation is viewed as quite possibly of the quickest emerging nation on the planet. Frequently alluded to as the rainbow country, South Africa is one of the main nations on this rundown that isn't dependent on a solitary wellspring of income. The nation has a decent blend of mining, producing, monetary administrations, and the travel industry. It is likewise bountiful in normal assets and natural substance trades any semblance of gold, jewels, platinum, coal, and iron mineral. Number 2. Egypt, gross domestic product, $435.62 billion. This old land in northern Africa held the spot of the most extravagant country in Africa for a long time. Be that as it may, the economy endured harshly and unfamiliar. Trade saves tumbled following the 2011 upset during the Bedouin uprising. With the latest gross domestic product of more than $400 billion, Egypt currently holds the second right on target in this rich Africa list. Monetary exercises have improved and balanced out throughout the past 10 years to encounter positive financial development. The public authority as of late finished up a monetary change program close by the IMF pointed toward transforming and reinforcing the economy. Genuine gross domestic product development came to 5.6% in 2019, up from 5.3% in 2018. The nation has likewise seen joblessness levels fall, an improvement in unfamiliar trade holds, the higher commodity of labor and products, and a supported travel industry area, all adding to its turn of events. Number 1. Nigeria, the most extravagant country in Africa, gross domestic product, $510.58 billion. This West African country, with a populace of more than 200 million residents, makes up a fundamental piece of the African economy. With a gross domestic product of simply more than $510 billion, Nigeria stands firm on the footing of the most extravagant country in Africa. The sizable gross domestic product is for the most part determined by finance, transport, foundation, the travel industry, and a wealth of unrefined petroleum. The nation records around 1.6 million barrels of raw petroleum daily, as per OPEC, making it the biggest exporter of raw petroleum in Africa. These petrol trades make up 10% of all gross domestic product and more than 80% of the commodity area income. How was the video? Did you enjoy it? Post your feedback in our comments section below, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates.